We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, and welcome to Talk Up Your Biz. I'm Jean Noel Bassior, and my co-host Susan Levin isn't here today. She's taking today off. Hope that she will be back really, really soon, and we know that she's listening, I'm sure. So hello, Susan. And today we've got some amazing guests. Susan has been the producer for this show and for the Book Beat, which is my show that follows this one. And so we have our usual guests who are scheduled. We have Dr. Sarita Jackson. She's a political science professor who's an expert on how to take your business global. And she actually was a client. She is a client of Susan's and mine. And she's such a great example of what this show is about getting out there and talking up your business, and which she has made a commitment to do. So we're going to hear her story. And we have Kristen McDonald. And Kristen had a great career in television until her vision began failing from retinitis pigmentosa. And so she had to figure out what to do, and if plan A for her life wasn't working, how to construct a plan B. And she did that. So she now has a company called Second Vision, and she shows people how to reboot and recreate your life's vision if you're facing challenges that you didn't expect. And we're going to talk to Kristen and find out her story and how she has been able to do that. And I think she's got a great career ahead of her as a stand-up comic from what I've seen. So instead of Susan and I kind of wrapping for our 20-minute segment here, I'm just going to take a few minutes to keep you in touch with what's, happening in the speaking biz and maybe give you a few tips, as we usually do. And talk about why something like Speaker Services, which is Susan's company, even exists, which is to give speakers a chance to be contacted directly by meeting planners, to have a place on a website. And there are other places that do this as well. I mean, Speaker Services is one of them. There are others as well, Speaker Match and a few others. And basically the difference between that kind of an arrangement and an agency. What's the difference between, an agency and that? Well, you don't pay a commission. You're kind of up there, and, meeting planners, event planners can see you on the web. And what Susan and I have found is that a lot of people kind of sit there and assume that they're going to be found, which can happen, of course, and does all the time, and a lot of people get great results. But it's also important to be proactive. It's really important to know how to reach out and kind of let meeting planners know who you are and what you do, and get your promotional materials together. And that is what can really help you get out there and talk about your business. And as I always like to say on this show, sometimes you're sitting at home and you're watching television and you go like, some expert comes on and they're talking about something that you know really well. Maybe they're talking about your business and they have a similar business. And you're going like, why are they there? How come I'm not up there? And it's all about taking that first step to sort of decide that you're going to be the one who goes out and speaks about what you do. You're going to be the person in that field or in that business, or the expert who's written a book. You don't always have to have a book. You can do this without a book. But you're going to be that person that the media learns is the person to call on. So how do you do that? Well, that's what we're going to ask our guests about. And Sarita Jackson is kind of taking that step right now. But basically, you need to have the right promotional materials. That's really important. You need to have a one sheet. You need to know how to make a phone call that is going to get a response. And one of the ways to do that is, for example, if you're leaving a message to a meeting planner or just to an organization to find out who the meeting planner is, you might want to call up and say in your message, if you are leaving a voicemail, or if a person answers the phone and you got about 30 seconds, that elevator speech, to let them know that you've got the solution to a problem that their organization is facing. So how do you do that? You research, study the organization that you want to speak for. Look at who the past speakers are. Look at what's coming up at their next conference. Look at the problems that are on their agenda to solve. So you can do an enormous amount of research so you start to feel like you know that organization's challenges. And so it's going to change the whole way you approach them. It's going to give you more confidence, and it's going to give you the basis to create a pitch where they will actually call you back. And then when they do call you back, you always have to have something in writing. Even if you chat with somebody, you have a great conversation over the phone, the thing that they want to hear you say is, oh, shall I shoot you over a proposal about that? And a proposal in this case can often be just a 1 to 2 paragraph email proposal that tells what you speak about, follows up on these specifically on the conversation you just had. There's lots of things that you can do to be proactive, and so that's some of the things that we teach in our coaching. And then that way, as you do more, you're going to attract more calls from meeting planners. So I'm just going to give you a couple of tips for this week, and this comes from a book that was actually written quite a while ago. It was by Michael Jeffries, and it's called Success Secrets of the Motivational Superstars. And he interviewed a lot of people like Brian Tracy, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, the usual suspects. And he compiled at the end of the book, one of the people he interviewed was Patricia Fripp. And she's somebody who's still out there. She is a well-known keynote speaker. Susan and I recommend her all the time. We send people to fripp.com, which is her website. She's an executive speech coach. And she had a whole bunch of tips. I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 of them real quick here. One of them is just about how to follow up in general in your business with clients and customers. And the other 2 are about speaking. So the first one is the most important element in building your business is keeping in touch with your customers. And Shelley Campbell, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago, is so good at this. She will call people a lot. And I said to her once, Shelley, I'm really afraid to call people because I don't want to be like, a pest. And she told the story of a woman that she kept calling, kept leaving messages for her. And finally, she got her on the phone. And the woman said, Shelley, I'm so glad that you called me because I've just been meaning to call you and I just haven't made the time to do it. So you can get actually a really positive response sometime that you didn't expect. So don't be afraid to bug people. That's Patricia's Fripp, her tip as well. And another thing she talks about when you're speaking, the most important thing is to be yourself. It's really more important than anything because the audience has to like you. They have to really fall in love with you. And that's how you get the best results when you're speaking. So it's more important than organization is important. The information is important. All of that's important. But I agree with Fripp here that being yourself is really, really important. And the third thing is if you're speaking, be sure you go early. Be sure you talk to them in advance about your equipment, because even Susan and I had an experience once where we went down to speak at a place and they told us that they would be set up for a Mac computer and they weren't. And so we weren't able to use the PowerPoint presentation that we had. And so, you have to just make really, really sure that the equipment that you need is going to be there. So those are 3 quick tips for you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Dr. Sarita Jackson, and we're going to find out if you've got a business, even a small business, how can you go global, and how is she getting out there and speaking about this and getting the word out. So this is Talk Up Your Biz, and we'll see you after this brief intermission.
The future will blossom magnificently, 'cause today I'm planting the seed. Planting a seed to build a world closer to heaven. Planting a seed in my soul. I'm watching it grow. If you believe, we will make it.
Hi, this is Elena inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Today is my day.
Hi, and welcome back to Talk Up Your Biz. I'm Jean Noel Bassior, and I'm here today without my co-host Susan Levin, who will be back soon. And we have in studio a client of Susan and mine. We've been coaching her, Dr. Sarita Jackson. And she has been a political science professor at North Carolina A&T, right? State University. Mm-hmm. And you were a Fulbright scholar. Amazing. I know you've worked in South Africa, right?
Yes, in the Southern African region.
Southern African region. And you have your own company now. It's a Global Research Institute of International Trade, right?
Correct, yes.
Right. And so you're sort of, would you say that you're in transition from being a full-time academic to actually getting out there in the real world and being a consultant? Is that...
Yes. Prior to my academic experience, actually, I was making the transition from being a consultant to full-time academia.
Oh.
And so now I'm going back, and so I'm combining those experiences as a consultant when I worked in the Southern African region with the Trade Hub based in Botswana, and my academic research looking at free trade negotiations between the United States and Latin America and the Caribbean. So I'm combining those and bringing them into the Global Research Institute of International Trade.
So you mean you were kind of doing this first as a consultant, and then you went into the academic world, and did you learn a lot there that really helped, and you became a doctor, got your PhD, right?
Right. Well, I got my PhD prior to becoming a consultant.
Oh, okay.
But what was important to me, even when I was working on my doctorate, to get the on-the-ground experience to see how the things that we discuss in academia from a theoretical perspective, how it actually applies on the ground when we're traveling to different countries and advising them on how to take advantage of free trade agreements.
And was it different? What did you find?
Well, one of the things is that much of the theory does apply. It's just in terms of encountering different things you don't think of from a theoretical perspective. So when you're working with governments, what are some of the challenges that they are facing? So it's one thing to say free trade agreements are great, but then it's another, how do you go about taking advantage of some of these free trade agreements?
Yeah. Now, when you say free trade agreement, my eyes glaze over. I have to tell you. And
So,
when you worked with us, I said, you mean like let's say somebody has a small business, and you remember how I kept saying and they want to go global, and they can actually do that, right? But what about all that red tape? And it just must seem like this mountain that they have to. So what do you do that do you simplify it for them?
Right,
Or?
and that's the first thing, that I simplify it, because one of the things and that I've encountered when I've spoken with small business owners, that, like you said, free trade agreements, okay, yeah, what's
Yeah.
that? So one of the things that I start off with is just making them aware, not just going to the global market, but looking at those particular markets with which we have special access, meaning that you don't have to pay duties on whatever you export to those countries with which we have free trade
So
agreements.
that's a good place to start. Is
Right.
Sort of, I
Just
see.
being aware of, well, what countries do we have agreements with, as opposed to just going to any market where you may encounter problems
I
with
see.
getting your goods or your services into that country. So that's the first thing. Then, of course, getting to some of the rules within those agreements. They're very technical, but simplifying it. What does it mean for your particular business? How can you benefit if you are an apparel manufacturer? How can you benefit if you are an international trade lawyer and you want to provide services in other countries? So that's the second part. And then the third part is implementing it. So once I'm aware of these agreements, once I understand them, then how can I go about it? And that's where I provide a step-by-step process to help businesses to take advantage of these free trade agreements.
So give me an example of somebody who's got a small business who might not think that they could really go global, but they really could. What kind of business might that be? Like, say, here in Los Angeles.
Well, here in Los Angeles, we can think about it in terms of even manufacturing or even agriculture, but I'll start with manufacturing since we have, the garment district, for example. So say you are a fashion designer. You produce all of these great clothes for our Hollywood actors and actresses. Well, you might also want to export that clothing, whatever that design is, say to Mexico, since we have the North American Free Trade Agreement or NAFTA. You might want to send it to Mexico or to Canada or some other countries as well that we have free trade agreements. So that's one way of thinking about it. But then again, you wouldn't have to pay the tariffs on exporting that good to another country. It would be much easier for
I
you.
see. So that's good advice. Start where it's easiest.
Mhm.
So you also used to tell Susan and me that you could set this up probably in about 6 months. Is that a reasonable time, or?
In terms of the business or the speaking part?
Well, in terms of the business, like if I want to go global, that if I start with you now, that in 6 months I'll be.
Well, not necessarily 6 months, but at least about a year, 6 months to a year,
Okay.
where you can increase your profits. And there have been some studies where small businesses who were a bit skeptical in the beginning have taken advantage of the international market and actually saw a positive return in 2 years or less. Yeah, there was a study pointing out that only 24% of small businesses actually export. But of that 24%, and this is where I come in because we need to increase that number, but of that 24%, a little over 60% actually saw a positive return where they were able to increase their profits and had a positive experience with those countries with which we do have free trade
And what was
agreements.
the time period on that? They 60% saw a positive return
Within 2 years.
Within 2 years
or less.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do you think is let's say you sit down with somebody and you explain all this and you're opening all these doors and possibilities, but what do they tell you? What where do people get stuck? What kind of resistance do you run into?
Well, one is understanding what all of this is about. Then the process, because it is a lot of paperwork that goes into it. But the main thing, and just recently, actually a few weeks ago, I was in Santa Monica with some small business owners, and that was one of the things. First of all, we don't even understand it. We don't understand what, when you say free trade, what
Yeah,
all
it's
of
like-
this is about, what these agreements are. When we're hearing about, what President Obama is doing, it just kind of,
Right. It's like
we don't really think
my
it applies
life is
to us.
already too complicated.
Right. And
yeah.
then also in terms of time, that it can be very time consuming, just number one, to understand it and then to go through the process.
Well, is it time consuming?
It can be, but that's where with the Global Research Institute of International Trade comes in, where we have a one-stop shop to make it simpler for business owners so that they don't have to go to this website over here or that website over there to get information, that it is all in one location and that it's simpler.
Right. And people don't probably know. Most people don't know, because I didn't, that you could have a coach to coach you in how to become global, because
Right.
I just don't wake up thinking about that in the morning, so
Mhm.
so that's an interesting. I mean, are there many people that do that, or are you kind of unique at this point?
There are resources out there, but as far as putting it in its simplest terms and then working with the small businesses, I am entering into that market, because even with the resources, there are a number of small businesses that are unaware of what exists. And the other thing that I tell business owners is that even when you look at the current the economic situation here in the United States, many will say, well, I'm not able to sell as much or things like that. And that's where identifying other markets become important.
Yeah.
Because regardless of what the economic situation is, just say right here in the United States, at least you have customers in other countries.
Worldwide,
You're diversifying your market.
It seems like that must be a real eye-opener for some people, right? Because
Right.
you do hear about small businesses struggling, mainly,
Right.
especially mom and pop enterprises,
Mhm.
right? Would this be a way for, say, like if Walmart's going to move down the street and you're going to go, what?
Right.
What
Because
now?
they've taken advantage of international trade.
Right, and
Right.
so, but there may be like 5 zillion people in South Africa who want what I have, or
Right.
somehow, right?
Right, most definitely. That it helps you to diversify your market. So regardless of what is going on economically, not only are you're struggling to survive, but you can thrive. And one of the things, and that's interesting that you mentioned, South Africa, that one of the things that people ignore is that when we look at some of these developing countries throughout the continent of Africa, for example, or even Latin America and the Caribbean, there are a number of emerging economies where they do have that purchasing power. And particularly those with which we do have a free trade agreement to simplify or make it easier, I should say. These are some markets that should also be on the radar for small business owners.
And is this like Asia, Europe? Is this really worldwide, or are there particular places in the world right now that are especially good markets for us?
Well, particularly, I would say there are a number of African countries. Definitely the Latin American countries like Mexico, for example. We have a free trade agreement with Central American countries, the Dominican Republic. Right now, we are negotiating a free trade agreement with the European Union, which is the the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or TTIP. So that's one of the things that I often promote, to follow what's going on with those negotiations. Then we also have another one with the Pacific countries, the Trans-Pacific Agreement, and that is currently being negotiated. And once these deals are closed, then that creates even a larger market, a regional
It's going to
market.
increase the potential.
Right,
Yeah.
throughout the Asia Pacific region and then across the Atlantic with the European Union.
Why did you get into this? What was it that fascinated you about this?
Well, the way that I got into this whole idea of international trade actually was by accident. When I was in graduate school at Brown University, I was trying to figure out what do I want to do in terms of my research, and I was in Washington, D.C., and I met someone that was the commercial attaché for the Panamanian embassy in Washington, D.C., and I was getting ready to travel to Panama, talked to her, and she says, one of the issues that's really going on right now that you should really think about is what's happening with free trade negotiations, because we are concerned about, possibly negotiating an agreement with the United States. So through that and just kind of learning it, that's how it evolved.
You must have had some kind of affinity for this, because if somebody said free trade negotiations to me, I don't think I might end the conversation.
Well,
but you must have been interested in this.
Well, I think what really caught my eye, because it was something that was not discussed
Uh-huh.
as much. When you're talking about international relations and our relationship with other countries, it often evolves around, democratic systems and things like that. What types of political systems we
You were
have.
into political science, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you
That's
don't hear as much about what's happening in terms of our economic relations or political economic relations. And so from that angle, I thought, well, yeah, maybe this is something worth pursuing. And then, of course, as I learned more, I developed a passion for it.
Did it seem like it could expand things beyond politics, sort of, for you, or more
Most
into
definitely.
the worldwide arena?
Yeah, most definitely, because even when I travel, I've had speaking engagements just this year alone where I've not only spoken with political scientists about what's happening in terms of this type of bargaining, but also business and economics students or business representatives. And so that's where I realized, oh, I can take this what I do academically and apply it in a more practical level, because there is not that much understanding of what is happening. So then I can work with business owners and say, okay, not just here are the free trade agreements, this is what we're doing, but how you can take advantage of it.
And of course, with the technology, things are going global really fast.
Exactly.
It's getting easier and easier, right?
Most definitely.
Yeah, so the timing's really good. Let's talk for a couple of minutes about how you have been making this transition, because I know when you first came, flashback here, and you came to Susan and I, for coaching, and then I think your first assignment, which was really good, you're a great student, and I was like reading it like 6 times, like what, this is academic. I felt, I know we had to get you out of that academic language, which you're not the first. I mean, it can be very traumatic for many academics, but you've done a great job. You're a recovering academic, right?
I like that, recovering academic.
So, but are you liking this? How are you getting your message out there now? And are you?
Well, first of all, I do like it. One, because I can really see how this is useful to the rest of the world. I love academia, don't get me wrong, but
I know you do.
when we publish, it goes to a specific audience.
Right.
But I enjoy being able to assist others with my work and actually get the message out. Now, how I go about doing it, well, one of the things, I do have a seminar coming up September 28th, and just doing that, and as well as the previous speaking engagements that I've had, have all been through personal contact. So I will meet people, whether it was at a conference or just friends, colleagues, people who are business owners, where I will share my expertise and say, these are some of the things I would like to talk about. For example, businesses generally, large and small businesses in the global market, minority-owned businesses, women businesses, and how they can connect with female entrepreneurs, particularly in developing countries. So I just tell them what I do, and then just throw it out there. Is this something that you would be interested in? This is how you can benefit from my talks, and I would love to come and speak to a group. And that's how the upcoming event came about.
Is that in Los Angeles, this event?
In Los Angeles. You can go to my website.
September 28th.
September 28th, Saturday at 10 o'clock. And that was all through personal contact.
Wow. So you're actually getting the message out there. Is there anything else you're doing, like to be proactive, or?
Yeah, since I've come back to Los Angeles, joining a number of different groups.
Networking groups?
Yes, I've attended 2 Rotary Club meetings, Toastmasters groups, and looking forward to participating in some others, chambers of commerce, and things of that nature, so that I can get the message out about what I do as well.
So that's great. So anything else is there anything you're finding that you didn't expect about kind of in this getting out of the academic world and into the real world here?
Nothing surprising, because I wasn't, I think that's what helps helps me move a little bit faster, because I was a consultant. And then also, and I think I mentioned this to you when I first met you, that also I have the journalism background. So
that's right. You
so
do.
it's more of a matter of just, remembering, go back to journalism, simplify it.
How do I say that in 4th grade language?
Right. So a lot of that helps. I think what surprised me is just at the speed at which things are moving so far.
Yeah, they are moving fast.
I expected it to kind of take a little bit longer, but things are moving quickly, and I enjoy that.
They do seem to be moving quickly for you. I sense that. Yeah. So once you actually made the decision to get out there and start talking about what you do, it's like connections happen, right?
Right. Yeah, where people are contacting me. That has been extremely helpful. I have another radio interview coming up in September as well, in North Carolina, where I will get the message out about, my what I offer small businesses and helping them to integrate into the global market. So that has been extremely helpful. And then one other thing that I use as a tool to get my name out there is my blog, International Trade Examiner, which has been extremely useful because when people go to that, they can also see, okay, not only is she planning to talk about these things, but we see that she has some expertise
Yeah,
in these
you've
areas.
got an amazing background. You've got the credentials, and I'm not trying to bash academia, folks. But sometimes we have these clients that we have to kind of, go through, translate,
Yes.
what their promotional materials attempt to say. And you've been wonderful. You really,
Thank you.
it's great. Didn't want to beat you up. But so how can people contact you? What's the best way?
Well, one of the things, they can go to my website, www.sarita, and I'll spell that, S as in Sam, A-R-I-T as in Tom, A, Jackson.com. And on that website, it has my phone number, email address, and also contact sheets if anyone's interested, as Section 4 meeting planners that's interested in contacting me about speaking at any upcoming events.
Great. And you did that meeting planner page like Susan taught you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Very good. It's so great to have, a client who actually does, this stuff. So we've just got about 30 seconds here, but what would you say to somebody, again, like who has a small business, who's listening to us, what kind of encouragement would you give them about going global?
Well, one thing, to just get rid of the fear about the international market. Yes, it's big, but the world is much smaller. So just to take that step, the same with me going into public speaking, just to take that step and become aware of what's going on. And you will see the benefits. And if you're looking to grow your profits and expand, that's the way to do it.
Thank you, Sarita Jackson. That's beautiful.
Thank you for having me.
The world is smaller than you think. So coming up, do you have a plan B? At age 29, Kristen McDonald had a great career going in television, and then she found out that her vision was failing, and she had to really rethink her life and how to create what she calls second vision. So she's going to be joining us. Kristen teaches people how to recreate their life's vision when the first one has failed. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Talk Up Your Biz here at latalklive.com, where we're more than just talk.
Today is my day, a brand new beginning. The future will blossom magnificently, 'cause today I'm planting the seed. Planting a seed to build a world closer to heaven. Planting a seed in my soul, I'm watching it grow.
Hi, this is Dawn Christie inviting you to join me every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, for my all-new show, The Dawn Christie Show. Join me as I discuss love, spiritual readings, your purpose, why am I born, what am I here to do. So don't forget to tune in The Dawn Christie Show at 1 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
My clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new, but there is joy in my house.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio,
with a touch of recovery.
a reality show where nothing is left unsaid,
And no one is insignificant who says it.
exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Susan Levin, owner and founder of Speaker Services, inviting you to join me and co-host Jean Noel Bassiar on Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, for our new show, Talk Up Your Business, Speak Your Way to More Profits. We'll be talking to you about how to use your expertise to grow your business or service through speaking. Our expert speakers and author guests will share their stories and success secrets with you. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Up Your Business Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, and welcome back to Talk Up Your Biz. I'm Jean Noel Bassiar, and my co-host Susan Levin isn't here today, but hopefully she will be back soon. And so we're kind of flying solo today, and we've got Kristen McDonald in the studio next to me. And at age 29, Kristen was pursuing her vision of becoming an actress and a host in Hollywood. And then you broke your arm twice, right? And then that was how you discovered that your vision was failing, especially your night vision, right? And she discovered her eyesight was slowly degenerating from a condition called retinitis pigmentosa. But despite this grim diagnosis, Kristen went on to work with some of the top people in Hollywood as an associate producer on numerous television shows, and she is proof positive that you can overcome any obstacle, any disability, any shortcoming, any unexpected turn in the road, and prosper. And you worked with Aaron Spelling's partner, right?
I did, with E. Duke Vincent for many years.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful man.
Yeah.
We're still in touch, and I was there for quite some time. It was only a year or two after I found out that I'd known for a couple of years, but I was a year into the job when I had to tell them what was happening. So I stayed there quite some time. They were like family to me.
Mm-hmm. And I remember meeting you sort of, I guess it was like, I don't know how many years ago, but you knew your vision was failing then. I think you mentioned that you had been, weren't you with NBC or a network, one of those network morning shows? Or?
You know, when I first started out, I've done, my mother says, you had so many jobs, I can't remember. I said, now listen, that's normal in television. Don't make me feel bad.
Exactly.
I don't have a PhD, I will tell you that much.
Right.
Although I tell people I have a PhD in life skills, and I think that is the truth now.
There you go.
I started out at ABC after school in New York, and I worked I was trained as an actress, and I had a dream of coming out here to pursue that career, which I did. But I came out here, and shortly after moving to California, I got a role on the NBC soap opera Santa Barbara, which was reoccurring, and it was one of my little dreams.
Wow.
And that's when I started being accused of that I was legally blonde instead of legally blind, because I was tripping on cords and things in the studio and not knowing what was wrong. But it was my night vision that was failing. And I'd go out on a date and no alcohol in my system, and I'd walk down the Santa Monica Promenade and fall right down, just like that microphone. See, I'm excused when you can't see.
And you can laugh about it.
And I can laugh about it. You have to, my God. At least it's not... So I broke my arm for the second time at a cast party for this NBC soap opera, and it was not, and I ended up in a real cast, put it that way. So the doctor said, you either need glasses and, something might be wrong. So I went to get a checkup, and he said, you may have a brain tumor, or you may have this condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which very few people can pronounce.
And which may have seemed better than the brain tumor at the time,
Absolutely. Absolutely, it was better, because I didn't know what was going to happen, and I found out within a few short weeks that I had a retinal condition that just came out of the air. That sometimes happens in life. It was supposedly genetic, but nobody in our family had it.
So they don't know. It just seemed to come out of the blue then, right?
Out of the blue. They say it's genetic, but no one in our family had it. So
yeah. So where did it come from? So you had Plan A, which obviously wasn't going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, I know you have developed Second Vision in a way to help people develop a plan B, but I assume that that didn't happen overnight, that you
Oh,
went through
no.
some stuff, right?
Absolutely. I think, with anything, especially in my case, because it wasn't like I went blind from a car accident.
Right.
It was slow degeneration. And I won't tell you exactly how many years since I was 29, but it's been some time. And I think
Well, I remember
wisdom.
you talking about that because I remember like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, you were saying, well, I know my vision's going to get worse and stuff, and I was going like, well, how is she going to deal with this? I was just
Yeah. One of the ways I think that we learn to deal with terrible adversity like this or illness is a number of things. One is to have a place at the table for it, to really experience loss. I mean, I'm proud to say that I went and sought, the help of a great therapist. One was partially sighted and one was sighted. And I got every single tool in my back pocket, from mobility training to independent living skills I mean, that's why I say that it was really a PhD in going blind. And what it taught me was it gave me life skills to help other people overcome, different forks in the road and diagnosis or there are 1,000 things that can happen to us. We come into this life, thinking that we'll have a plan or a vision of the way our life is going to look like, whether we're going to marry a certain person, land a certain job, our health is going to be a certain way, and it doesn't always work out that way. 1,000 things can happen and knock us off the path. So we need to have these skills to kind of know how to, go with the flow.
How did you deal with just the fear or the scary part of it?
I think, as many of the great philosophers have always said, that fear is often worse than the actual outcome. And if someone were to give me a little video of my life today, 20 years ago, and say, wow, you're going to be out there as a blind speaker or actress or, pursuing your life and you can't see the person, I can't see you right now looking at you. It's a heartbreak for me to tell you that, but I've dealt with it. And so I'm not sitting at home crying every night now. I'm out doing dynamic things with my life and trying to help other people. And I think the fear sometimes stops us and just grips us by the throat. And if you can really learn to walk through that, and embrace what you fear the most, the gifts start to arrive.
And out of that came Second Vision, right?
Out of that came Second Vision, with living your life with your 3 best attitudes, with acceptance, getting out of denial, because I was in great denial when it first happened to me. The tripping, the falling, I knew somebody said to me, you must have known something was wrong. And I said, yes, on a subconscious level, my brain was saying something is definitely not right. But I was so happy at that age coming here and driving my little red sports car down Sunset Boulevard and landing an agent, and California was my dream, that I didn't want my brain I didn't want anything to get in the way of my vision, my dream.
No, of course not. That's like a long way to fall. When
Yes.
you're on your way up.
Yeah.
Your life was going well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be particularly hard to deal with. So Second Vision then is about having a plan B, right?
Second Vision is a number of things. It's about living your life. It's about first having these skills in your back pocket, because everybody in life, I think, can relate to it, whether it's because of a job loss, a divorce, a move, you get thrown off the path from an illness, whatever the case may be. Not everybody's life is picture perfect. And we have these crises sometimes and choices in our life where we have to take a different look and say, well, how am I going to think outside the box and get out of this situation? How can I make a better plan now that this one has failed? So that's part of Second Vision. And the second part is really having these 3 attitudes. The first, as I said, was acceptance, having really embracing the difficult things and turning over what you can't change and changing what you can. And the second is gratitude. I lost a very dear friend this year at age 47 from a brain tumor. And he was the most wonderful man. And he taught me so much, because he had such a positive attitude that there was never a moment that he wasn't just shining, that Robert wasn't just beaming with gratitude for every day that he had left on the planet. And the last is really about balancing your mental, physical, and spiritual energy, about being a master of your own body. It's taken me time to figure out that I was allergic to wheat and gluten, which almost, used to cause me to be a little ADD and give me stomach aches. And I feel like $1 million now, and I really know what goes into my body. And great deal of physical exercise. I doubled and tripled my physical exercise when this happened to me. I was athletic to start, but I give thanks every day that I can still exercise. And that really brought and elevated my energy level up. And then reading lots of spiritual books and going to seminars and training with people like Speaker Services and Jack Barnard and Barbara Niven and Susan and yourself and all the great people that came into my life. That balances your energy when you go after your passion.
So did this, it sounds like this brought out a certain desire or ambition or energy.
It did.
in you.
Passion. I found my new
yeah.
passion as a result of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have to have a meaning and purpose for our life, and that's where we often find our passion. It actually came, when Aaron Spelling died, and he passed a few months after we closed the company, and my eyesight had diminished to the point where I couldn't do that job anymore, but I was just doing the best job that I could. But after that, I really went in search of myself again, soul searching, and that's what brought me back to this wonderful new career of speaking.
And now you're getting out there.
Now I'm getting out there. It's
and
really a
helping.
great feeling.
And what are you finding? Like, what kind of people are you speaking to?
All different kinds of groups. That is the most wonderful thing about Second Vision. And again, I want to thank my wonderful media coach, Jack Barnard, because he's an expert brander.
Jack is very good at teaching you how to do storytelling,
Yes.
right, in your
Yes.
presentation, isn't he?
He's just incredible. And he, with that template, and I rolled my eyes when I first got that assignment. And all the speakers boot camps and that sort of thing. But he really was an expert brander in my case, because the more that I've gotten the Second Vision message out, by the way, I had a radio show called Second Vision for the past 4 years on airslaw.org. It's the first reading and radio internet service for the blind and visually impaired. And I've just taken a mini break from it right now, but over the past years I've interviewed scores of people in personal development. So Second Vision really speaks to everyone. I'm getting out to corporations, to people with disabilities, I just did one for a group of homeless women for the Junior League of America. It was probably one of the most gratifying one I've ever done, a workshop for them. Another national organization for people who are just going back into the workforce. Another entertainment company. So this really speaks to a lot of different groups.
Do you think that
colleges and universities?
Do you think that everybody should have a plan B just in case, or?
I think they should have the ability to know how to make a plan B. So if you have this kind of little life quake kit in your back pocket with these 3 best attitudes, it's kind of hard to miss if you're elevating with all those 3 things in place. I mean, obviously, I'd have to go into more in depth, if I was doing a workshop or something. But
acceptance would seem to me
huge.
like the biggest one in a way.
It
I don't
is.
know. Is that true?
Yeah, well, for me it was.
I would
because
think.
there was a big turning point. One of my big aha points came. One of my big aha moments rather was when I woke up one day and I thought, I'm raising all this money for charity and I'm living in the future for this chip or this stem cell that's going to happen one day, and it probably will. But it wasn't happening on my time. And suddenly I realized the hourglass was ticking, and I thought, this is my life. This is who I am. I have to just accept fully and embrace and love myself. There's a time where I hated carrying a cane. I was just so humiliated and uptight and nervous. And I walked down Beverly Boulevard one day, and all of a sudden I heard a man shout, "Look out, here comes a blind person." And I thought, I just ignored it because I never thought of myself as a blind person. And I kept walking, and then he yelled louder, "Look out, here comes a blind person, clear the decks." And I was so crushed. I thought my life was just over. Where was that little actress who came to Hollywood? And from that day on, I changed my thoughts. My sister said, "What were you thinking at the time?" And I said, "Well, I was thinking how much I hated the cane." And I started to change my thoughts, and then nobody ever saw the cane. They just saw me.
Yeah, you don't have a cane now, right?
Well, I do. I just was hiding it today, but no.
Well, I know that you've actually started a new acting career, and you get around town here, and you're sort of like, right? I mean,
well, I don't know if I've started a new acting career, but I'm sort of doing some interesting things. I love voiceovers, and I've got some things bubbling, that I can't talk about, but
I know there's an embargo on
Yes.
a commercial that you
Yes.
shot, but
Yes.
can we say you shot a national commercial? I don't know.
Sure.
I won't say what.
Yeah. So it's exciting. It sort of brings out that side of me that was really starting out as an actress. And I'd love to do a soap again. That would be a wonderful dream and a vision for me.
And there are roles for.
Yeah, but there's not
not many, of course.
many
Yeah.
for blind actresses.
No. But I mean, there are some, and
Yes.
who knows? Right?
Well, they need more. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way. They really, I was working on a wonderful book proposal with my sister, and hopefully it will not stay on the back burner. Hopefully it will come alive again one day. But it's called 100 Blind Dates. It's because I became the blind date. I admit it. I could tell you stories that would keep you laughing all night.
Well, so what were some of the, I know you've talked about some of the aha moments that you went through, but, this is like such a huge life transition. I mean, for most of us, we know we see motivational speakers, and especially people that have had challenges that are just like unbelievable. It's like the average person, like, it's hard to imagine. Was there any other revelations that you had that were really important to you that kind of made you take the next step or lifted you out of whatever dark space you were in at the time?
Yes, there have been many, and I think some stay with me. I remember walking through an airport one day and meeting a gentleman who was so enamored of just our conversation, what I was doing, and I asked him, he said, my wife has the same condition, and he was just blown away because she hadn't had any skills in the area that I had received, from computer training to mobility to living on my own, and she just sat in a dark corner. And I tried to talk to her on the phone, and I referred her to all the places that I had been to, but she was completely stuck. And she's, to me, in mental darkness, and that stayed with me in such a fearful place that I never wanted to go there. And I just worked harder at being the best I could, It was terrible sadness to hear that some people get so stuck,
Well, yeah, because most of us would be so afraid of darkness.
It still grips me, but I try to stay present. I think staying present is something that all of us need to try to do, because none of us know. We could worry about 5 years from now, and chances are we'll survive whatever it is, but we don't know what's going to come in 5 years, for better or for worse. So, I mean, it's just about really appreciating the moment and being present. And I think, having lost a lot of eyesight, that forced me more into the moment.
I guess it would have to.
Yeah, it does. You have to get your car keys out early and the money out and not mix up, give the driver a 20 instead of a 1, 5 or whatever.
Takes a lot of planning.
A lot of planning. You'll take me to a restaurant and I'll say, oh, there's 3 steps back there and the ladies' room's over there. And I remember these bizarre things,
Your memory must have gotten a lot better, right?
It has.
Yeah,
it really has. Yeah.
Yeah. So, are you very, very, very low-sighted, or is it pretty much?
I'm pretty low vision now. I mean, I do the best outside. I can see a glint of the color of someone's hair, or their frame, maybe the color of their shirt or something. But I can't make out details of the face anymore.
Sort of like shadows. There's a lot of
it's kind of like a ghost shadow,
It's interesting how people do deal with crisis, because I mean, I've met people who have been through tragic things. Like, I remember a director who was I interviewed for a book I was doing, and he was a rather well-known director, and then he married a woman, and then her daughter was murdered because she, about a year after he married this second wife. And his second wife never recovered. I mean, it's been 20, 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like yesterday. It's like I was visiting them, and she looked in the freezer and said, oh, chicken. Nancy would like that tonight for dinner. I mean, it was really, and then fibromyalgia and all kinds of other things. So when you're talking about the other woman who was sitting in the corner, there's so many extremes that you can choose to deal with this,
There are.
And the choice you made was not to dwell in the worst of the catastrophe.
No, I mean, I've certainly had my moments. I mean, I'd be dishonest if I
sure you
didn't
have,
admit
yeah.
that. And I think I wouldn't be the speaker or have created the system had I not gone through that.
Right.
And the unfortunate thing about RP is it's still happening. It's a slow loss. So, I'll get into a place of acceptance, and then I'll go to the mall or, open go to some building or something and say, where's the door? Suddenly that's missing, and that's a pretty scary feeling. Like, wow, I could see that a few months ago, or,
Yeah.
But, there have been angels watching and supporting me throughout all of this. And I think that has something to do with energy. And I've been very blessed with family and friends support and community support that I built for myself. And so that's made me very strong.
Have you gotten more sensitive to non-physical energy?
Yes. You mean just noise and?
Oh, well, that and metaphysical stuff.
Oh
or-
yeah, I was
yeah.
always into metaphysics before this even happened. So I mean, I think that's also really helped me through it. You know, and I have a strong faith in God, and so I think all those things combined are very, very helpful.
And how can people contact you to speak to their group?
And I would love them to. They can go
Yes.
to my website, to www.secondvision.net. And the whole philosophy that we talked about today with Second Vision and the AAAs and your attitude is all in my workbook called Second Vision.
Yeah, talk about that. I saw that
Sure.
that's available through Amazon, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, we have a couple minutes. Tell us what
Great.
will that. Yeah, what
It's
will
an
that-
interactive journal, and it's really broken down into sections with these 3 attitudes that we talked about. And it's a real workbook. And it takes time. So if you happen to get the workbook, take the time to do it slowly, because those exercises really need to resonate. You know, you need to kind of go over them, and they're everything from like purging your feelings on paper to you know, keeping a daily gratitude journal. It sounds trite, and some of the best authors in the world have talked about it before, but that's because it works. Because if we really look at the end of our day every day, we can always find 5 new things that we're grateful for, and it elevates your spirit. You know, looking at what you can do and what you do have, opposed to not what you don't have. And
Is this audio and a book as well?
no,
or is it-
unfortunately, it's not on audio yet because I can't read it to put on it on audio.
Oh,
No, I'm
true.
kidding.
Well, you could.
No, my next version will be on audio.
Yeah.
I promise. Yeah.
Good
But I do
point.
have all those podcasts and shows that people can listen to on the website too.
Yeah, that's
Lots of radio shows.
That's
Great authors and
That's great.
yeah.
So just call Kristen again, or contact you through email.
Through my website,
Through,
yes.
Through your website, and say your website one more time.
It's www.secondvision.net. And, you know, my website is, you know, my email address is there.
And so, just in the minute that we have left,
Sure.
let's just say that somebody is facing a life challenge that's not as drastic as what you've been through. Just, but you know, in the light of talking to you, obviously, then a lot of things, you know, we put them more in perspective because we don't have to deal with, you know,
Sure.
knowing if there's a door there or
Sure,
not. You
sure.
know, so life seems, you know, easier. But what would you say to somebody who is facing any kind of challenge right now that seems where it seems like it's going to be like a catastrophe, it's going to be awful, and, you know?
You know what I'd say? I made this wonderful new friend recently, and we met at the Apple Store, and it was kind of a cosmic meeting, and we've done speeches together. And his name is Kyle Manis, and he's a remarkable guy because he just attached himself to me in the Apple Store one day, and he didn't even know I had a cane, and it turns out that he was about to go in to have a tumor removed in his brain. And he told me that he was going to lose his hearing in his right ear. And the long story is that he did lose the hearing in his right ear, but he is now running Ironman triathlons. And he said that a great deal of it when he was in the coma was because of the words that I had given him in the Apple Store and the encouragement. And that was just never give up hope that he could do anything with his life despite any sort of disability or problem or crisis. And, you know, by embracing it and some of the things we talked about today and giving gratitude, and he's doing, and talk about energy. Boy, Kyle is really pumping up his energy every day. Now he's a major, you know, competitor for Ironman. So
Wow.
it's a great example of someone who used the philosophy and it worked.
Yeah, he found that new energy too,
He
like
did.
you did.
Yeah,
That's,
did.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
with
you.
us.
It was my pleasure.
Kristen McDonald. Give her a call. She's a great speaker. And contact our other guest, Dr. Sarita Jackson. She also is getting out there and speaking. That's what this show is about. Talk Up Your Biz. And for me and Jean Noel Bassior, on behalf of Susan Levin, my co-host who isn't here today, please keep listening for the book beat that's coming up, and get out there and talk about your business and just get the word out about your expertise. This is LA Talk Live, where we are more than just talk.
Future will blossom magnificently, 'cause today I'm planting the seed. Planting a seed to build a world closer to heaven. Planting a seed in my soul. I'm watching it grow. If
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.